business focused candidate forums from yesterday to Sunday. Yes. We had our first forum yesterday, and one of the candidates told me that they talked to 20 or more small business owners just to prepare for the event. And that is what this is about. We want to hear from our candidates for sure, but we want our candidates to listen to us, to hear the stories of the small business owners. So I'm so excited to be able to do this. And I want to thank our presenting sponsor, MailChimp, and our generous sponsors, Amherst Bank, our bar, Pond City Market, and One Source Graphics for making these events happen. If you haven't already registered for our events this weekend, we have a City Council President event coming up tomorrow. That one will be virtual. And we have an awesome mayoral forum on the top of Pond City Market on Sunday, and there are still some seats open. So if you haven't registered, please register for that on our website, or the link is in our Instagram as well. I want to thank everyone again for coming out. The questions that we are going to ask today were derived from 70 plus questions submitted to us from small business owners and entrepreneurs throughout the city. Huge thank you to everyone who submitted a suggestion and to the business associations that shared this with their networks. We are so excited to be able to crowdsource these questions for y'all. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing moderators who you already met because it's Mike's birthday today and Oscar's as well. Oh, that dog. So we are joined today by longtime Atlantan and editor-in-chief of Butter.ATL, Mike Jordan. Woo!
44 years old today, folks. Only feel like it on the inside.
And housing reporter for Atlanta Civic Circle and freelance journalist for New York Times, Atlanta Journal, and other publications, Sean Keenan. Thank you guys so much.
It's not my birthday.
Thank you. Lastly, I just want to thank everyone for some patience tonight. We got a lot of candidates to talk to. We are so excited to be talking to at-large seats. We know how important those seats are. They are just extra representatives for the whole city. So we are so excited. We are going to go through 3 forums, one for each post 1, 2, and 3. And so we will have a little bit of downtime as we clean the stage and make sure it's sanitary for everyone in between. So please be a little patient with us. But I'm going to kick it off to our awesome moderators, and he'll get us started. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Emma, and thank you, everyone, for coming. I think I want to start things off with post 2, because we only have one candidate present today. So I'd like to bring Matt Westmoreland to the stage. Round of applause for Matt for showing up. I didn't say that.
Pop City makes a mockery of democracy.
All right, and I'd like to give Matt a couple minutes to introduce himself. Matt, why don't you, for a minute or two, tell us who you are, what you've done for small businesses since you've been elected, and then we'll give you a question and send you on your way.
Yeah, we'll do. Good evening, everybody. What's up? How you guys doing?
Stop Pop City.
I'm not going to ignore you. I'm going to come and talk to you once I get off the stage, but hold on. It's okay. It's okay.
The indicator of urban heat is canopy, and you're going to chop down the canopy in disadvantaged neighborhoods.
No, I'm not. I'm actually going to restore the canopy for 275 acres, but I'm going to come and talk to you. I got you. I actually appreciate you being here, and I do want to talk to you. That vote, and I'm going to get to you in a second, is the toughest vote of the term. This is a hard way to have a conversation. I believe we're actually going to do more for the environment as a result of the dollars they're going to bring to that site. I had a conversation with my sister today who disagrees with my vote. So I respect anyone on any side of that issue because it is a super tough one. And so I'm going to come and talk to you in a second. I do want to say, what's up? Good evening. My name is Matt Westmoreland. I hold the post 2 at-large seat on the Atlanta City Council. I appreciate the invitation. Happy birthday to our 44-year-old and Oscar, wherever he went. Emma, I want to say thank you to you first and foremost. Your business association, we have spent an awful lot of time talking together over the last year. You have made major pieces of legislation a hell of a lot better because of your advocacy for the businesses up and down this corridor. And so I want to personally acknowledge and say thank you to that. And I'm hopeful that we'll get to work together for the next 4 years. I was born and raised here in Atlanta. I'm a proud product of our city's public school system. After college, I came home and I spent 4 years teaching history at Carver High School down in southeast Atlanta. 8 years ago, I ran for a seat on the school board. We were coming out of a cheating scandal and accreditation crisis. I am proud of the work that we did there to raise teacher pay, to move more dollars into the classroom. The graduation rate for Atlanta Public Schools went from 58 to 80% over those 4 years. 4 years ago, I ran for a seat on city council, frankly, because I saw that while APS had a lot more it needed to do, a lot of the shit that was impacting our kids were beyond the control of the school system. It was because kids were having to move too often because of rising prices for rents and mortgages. I taught a lot of kids at Carver High School who wanted a job, and we had a broken Atlanta Workforce Development Agency. So I am proud, pillar one, of the work that we've done over the last 4 years. We passed a $100 million housing bond in January of this year. It's the largest investment the city has ever made in housing affordability. It's not nearly enough. We need to add money every single year from our general fund budget. I'm going to introduce legislation on October 4th to get us moving down that path, because we have got so many more affordable units that we need to preserve and build so that folks can continue to live in this city. Second, we can't build our way out of our affordability challenges. You can build a lot, but you got to connect people to jobs that pay a living wage. And so we created a middle wage jobs fund last year, a bucket of money specifically to connect residents who live in underserved areas to jobs that pay $45,000, $55,000, $65,000, $75,000, especially those that don't require a college degree, because that's how we close income inequality gaps in Atlanta. That's how we increase social mobility rates, even though our city is currently among the worst in the country. And the last thing I want to touch on is we got way too many crappy streets and sidewalks in Atlanta. We are gonna, and we fucked up. Sorry. We messed up.
Please don't fucking cuss here today, man. Stop all this fucking cussing.
We have real infrastructure needs in this city. We started to make an investment with Renew in 2015 and the T-Splost in 2016. We messed up because we overpromised and underdelivered on those projects, and people are right to not trust us. But we got to continue having a conversation about how we renovate fire stations and how we expand green space and how we make our streets safer and we fix sidewalks. We need to make a huge investment in sidewalks, and we're going to have an opportunity over the next 8 or 9 months to have a conversation about that and how important making those infrastructure investments are. I know I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out if I can ever help from City Hall. I got cards on me, email addresses, and cell phones. I appreciate the invitation to be with you tonight, and I am happy to answer anything on your mind before I pass the stage to the next group.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. And I just want to quickly address the elephant in the room. As journalists, Mike and I both are very conscious of the incredibly polarizing nature of the Cop City legislation. We know it's on everybody's minds right now, but we've gathered everyone here today to mostly discuss small businesses and what the next generation of Atlanta leadership can do for these small businesses. So while I think it is an incredibly important point to discuss, today is probably not the forum. I personally am working on a story for Atlanta Magazine about the impact of this legislation. I wouldn't be surprised if a copy came from Mike about the same thing.
Go to Butter.ATL.com. There's a story about Cop City written by King William. So, yes,
Yeah.
we do talk about these things.
We don't want to shrug it off, but today we want to talk about small businesses. And so, Matt, I got a quick question for you before we send you on your way.
Sure.
How can or should the City of Atlanta, and especially Invest Atlanta, better support small businesses in a way that levels the playing field among not just the corporate companies, but also the little guys? And where are we falling short today?
Yep. In April of 2019, 11 of us on council introduced legislation to start shifting the focus of Invest Atlanta. I think Fortune 500 companies have a place, and an important place, in our economic ecosystem. We've been paying too much attention to Fortune 500 companies in Midtown and Buckhead, and not enough attention on small businesses and entrepreneurs, especially those that are locally grown. So in August of that year, we passed the first economic mobility plan the city has ever had, and it's focused on 4 pillars. We need to redirect our attention from where we've been for the last 10 years to community-focused development in underserved areas. We got to focus way more on middle-wage jobs than jobs that pay $150,000. Both are important. $150,000 jobs are really important. They buy big homes, they pay a lot of property taxes. But the reason we have the income gaps we have and the social mobility numbers we do is because we haven't been focused enough on middle wage jobs. The third is that support for small businesses and entrepreneurs, and then the fourth pillar is building wealth in communities of color, which I think a large part of that needs to be helping people buy homes for the first time and directing city dollars toward down payment assistance so that people can own homes and build equity and then pass that on to their kids. We have had a lot of conversations around, we're sitting in the East Side TAD, right? And so whether it's using TAD dollars to support businesses on this quarter or across the East Side TAD and the other TADs that we have, whether it's directing general fund dollars, which have grown over the last 4 years, but is not anywhere near where it needs to be. It requires a shift for Invest Atlanta that I know is happening because I'm watching it happen over the last 12 to 18 months. And so we're not there by any stretch yet, but we are doing so much more than we were 4 years ago. And honestly, I'm not just saying this because we're here. The businesses in the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, whether it's pushing the Beltline or pushing Invest Atlanta, they really are making us think about this topic better. And I think that is starting to bear fruit. And as we think about the infrastructure bond that's going to come hopefully in the spring, like how those dollars can be targeted to help small businesses as opposed to some of the investments that have happened right on this street in the last 4 or 5 years that actually hurt small businesses. Same with closing down this street for the weekends, right? We're trying to do things better. Sometimes we screw it up. And that's why I'm grateful for all the different folks in this room who I recognize who reach out when we're messing up so that we can continue to get it better.
Thanks, Councilman. All right. I think that'll do it for you.
Turn up. I'm going to come talk to you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much. All right, now I would like to introduce, or rather summon, our Post 1 City Council candidates. So if everyone would file this way, you can sit wherever you want.
And give them a round of applause for everyone showing up. This is really important that we got our City Council candidates at large here at our Butter.ATL. Make sure you over-tip your bartenders. And also, I wanted to really quickly just say one thing that I'd said last night at our City Council District 5 meeting forum. And this is in advance of any questions that candidates are going to be answering. If at all possible and in any time, early and often, whenever there's an initialism being used, and I say initialism, most people say an acronym, but the difference between an acronym and initialism, we don't have to get into all that. But if you're going to say something like TAD, please make sure that you say exactly what something TAD means in case some of the folks here would just like a little bit more context into some of these terms and some of these acronyms and initialisms that are used. My one pet peeve, but I'd love if y'all did that. Thank y'all.
Here, here. All right, why don't we start on my side with Mr. Jareem Sharp. Jareem, tell us who you are. I think you got a minute, right? That is the backup mic condom.
Yeah, you got one.
Okay, so how's everybody doing? My name is Jareem Sharp. I'm running for Atlanta City Council, Post 1 at large. I want to take this time to actually kind of talk about what Post 1 at large is. Many people don't know. So Atlanta is divided into 12 districts. When you hear or see the term at large, it does mean citywide. So anywhere and everywhere in the city of Atlanta limits, you will be able to vote for everybody that is on this stage. So again, my name is Jareem. My last name is Sharp. I live right up the street here in downtown Atlanta. You'll probably see me walking around with my dog Zion or scooting on a scooter as I got over here today. I'm probably one of the maybe 60 some odd candidates, even including the mayoral candidates, that actually uses alternative transportation as their primary mode of transportation every day. So I'm big on transportation and getting that fixed around our city. that's it. If you're looking for a council person that's really going to do the work, then vote for me. Again, my last name is Sharpe. That's Sharpe. Thank you.
Hey, just had a quick request for the sound man. Make sure we put those mics as close up and really kind of project as you speak, because the masks, of course. So, but thank you all for wearing them, and just make sure we speak as loud as we can with the mics up to us. Thank you.
Well, with that, I'll say good evening. How are y'all doing? Great. Good to see y'all. I'm an assistant council member, Michael I'm the current occupant of the post one at-large seat. I'm a native Atlanta. The first place I lived when I abandoned my parents was right down the street at 655 Park Road Drive. When I was at Morehouse College. So it's great to be back in the neighborhood. I want to thank you all for inviting me and having this forum. I've always been a big supporter of this area and the businesses and restaurants all across Atlanta. And I think that this is an important dialogue for him. I'm looking forward to it. And it's a blessing to be here. And thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. How's everybody doing today? Great. Okay, that's the energy. My name is Alfred Chivy Brooks. I am a school teacher by day. I teach high school economics, personal finance, and government at Charles R. Drew High School in Riverdale, Georgia. I'm a frontline activist and social justice fighter in this city. I fight against voter suppression. I fight against corruption at City Hall. I fight for working families. I work for you all on a day in and day out basis without having to be elected. What we need right now is real change. We need people who have new vision and the work ethic to see it through. I think now is the time for the youth to have a voice on city council, someone who understands our culture, someone who is a regular in environments like this, who don't feel uncomfortable to be here, who don't feel the need to do anything different because this is home. I think now we have a choice in the city. If we are where we want to be, then continue doing what we've always done. But if we want something new, then let's vote for someone new. Vote Brooks for ATL. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Randy Goldberg, also running for Post 1 at large. I'm resident of Midtown, and I've been involved in our community for many years. I'm the current chair of the Mid-Fulton Democrats. And when we had all those presidential debates before the pandemic, we were in this neighborhood at all the different businesses here doing watch parties, getting people together, supporting the old Fourth Ward. I'm also the immediate past president of the Stonewall Bar Association of Georgia, the LGBTQ Attorney Association, served on the steering committee of the Atlanta Black Jewish Coalition. And so the biggest issue in our city is division. It's what prevents us from solving public safety, housing, transportation, all of the other issues. My experience is of bringing people from different backgrounds, perspectives, ideologies together to find broad solutions that are going to have buy-in, that are going to be sustainable. Take a look at the 2017 mayoral runoff map between Mary Norwood and Mayor Bottoms, and you will see a city that is divided in half. It is not acceptable. We need to bridge those divides, and I'm the one who's going to help us do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gary.
What's up, ATL? How we doing? Thank you for being here to have your voice heard about the future of this city. I'm Todd Gray. I'm a son of Atlanta. My great aunt and great uncle were small business owners in this city. In the 1950s, they owned Lee's Inn, one of the few safe places where civil rights leaders could gather to plan to build our city and set the business culture we have here today. My mother went to Washington High School. My dad relocated to Atlanta from Butler, Georgia. She worked at Grady, just a few blocks away as a nurse's assistant, and retired from Eggleston. Since I was the age 23, I turned 40 years young this year. I have been doing the work of supplier diversity in this city, across the nation, advocating, providing resources to diverse businesses. So I look forward to this discussion today. I'm a native of this city. I stepped down from the City of Atlanta's Ethics Board as vice chair for this moment to run for Atlanta City Council, Post 1 at large. Thank you for being here. Look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, I'm going to start off with a question that comes from our presenting sponsor, MailChimp. And full disclosure, I have a MailChimp account. Just want to get that out there. MailChimp has heard from their customers in Atlanta with smaller businesses that they could use support with access to improved technology and business mentorship. What role do you think the city should play in providing accessible mentorship and technical assistance programs? And how would you improve upon what is currently offered? One more time. What role do you think the city should play in providing accessible mentorship and technical assistance programs? And how would you improve upon what is currently offered? And let's start from the reverse in the same way. So, Mr. Gray, if you'd like to answer the question, and we'll work our way back to the right.
All right, let's go. Back in the early 2000s, when Roy Barnes was the governor of the state of Georgia, he created the Georgia Mentor Protege Program. It was in partnership with Georgia Tech, and I was in that room. I worked with small businesses across the state of Georgia tirelessly every day since. After that program was defunded by the state, the Georgia Minority Supply Development Council picked it up. I was vice chair of the Georgia Minority Supply Development Council, and I stood in that program, and I've been involved in it ever since. That is a program that we built just for that reason, to help with technical assistance, access to capital, and to pair a small business in the state of Georgia with a corporate partner in their industry for an entire year and provide the funding and the resources to work on 3 critical business issues. I would bring such a program to City Hall. We can do one internally. We can have one in the city that works hand in hand with our procurement department to make sure we are developing the businesses for the future. We must be very intentional, not just creating businesses, but make sure we give them the resources to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
And I'm also a customer of MailChimp, and I'm always proud of my campaign to support our local businesses that are doing so successfully as they have been. When we build these mentorship programs, we have to be very purposeful about providing new entrepreneurs, startups, aspiring entrepreneurs with those connections. While that should be available to everyone, we of course need to pay particular attention to women and minority-led businesses, because while we need to solve the problem of the disparity in success rates, we need to deal with it in the meantime as we solve it. But it also needs to go beyond just technical assistance. It needs to go to financial assistance. How can we have these large companies that are setting up shop in Atlanta providing grants to some other smaller companies? Now, I don't think people should be funding their competitors, but if you have a large technology company, how can they support a restaurant that has struggled through the COVID pandemic? The role of City Hall is to build those bridges, to design those programs, and make sure the funding is there to get those networks going. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
So I myself am a small business owner. On top of being an educator, I'm also an influencer in the education space. And I use MailChimp to promote much of my merchandising that I use. And there are a lot of technical barriers in trying to figure out how to work things or how to make it happen. But see, one of the things that I am for is the closure of the Atlanta City Detention Center once and for all. And what I want to do with that space is use it to become a hub for hope, where we can actually not just look for opportunities for mentorship for small business owners, but also help them with access to capital, help them learn how to scale, give them the ability to grow their businesses. 96% of businesses in Atlanta are Black-owned, but have no employees. And I think now is the time to help elevate these businesses so they can create more jobs for local people. So I would be 100% for making sure Atlanta is a city where small businesses have the ability to create more jobs for people who look like us.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you for the question. Atlanta has a tradition of doing small businesses and doing partnerships. I have done the legislation for the MBE program, and it's updated 3 times. And just on Monday, it is the 3rd update that focuses on women and small businesses. One of the things that we can do is that companies that come to Atlanta and want to relocate, they ask the city for incentives. We can insist that they participate in partnerships and mentoring programs with small business. Not to compete with their competitors, like Mr. Goldberg said, but there is important information that larger companies obviously can pass on to smaller companies. I've done that work, and I will continue to build upon that.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp.
So I've recently had lots of conversations with some of the top technology companies that are here in Atlanta. So some companies such as Park Mobile, other companies such as, or organizations such as Atlanta Technology Village. And what we've discovered is that when it comes to technology in our city, no one's on the same page. Yes, we do have all of these technology companies in our city, but the reality of it is that, again, they are not actually offering programs to our youth because we have not sat down and had conversations with them. I would know because, again, I'm on the phone with them. So when I'm speaking with them, what I'm hearing from them is that when it comes to technology in our city is that there is no plan. When even we look at I think the Chief Information Officer Advisory Committee, we look at that committee and there are people on that committee that, in my opinion, don't even have the necessary experience to really be directing technology in our city. So I think that we really need to get all of our technology companies on the same page once and for all, and then we also need to be looking over at the CIO Advisory Board and making sure that that is intact or has the right board members appointed to it.
Thank you.
And very quickly, I was just wanted to let everyone know in the event, not saying that you should or need to, but if you wanted to take your mask off, that is totally perfectly fine. If you do not, don't listen to me at all. Make sure you're COVID safe, but thank y'all very much. It's an option.
This is a test.
Who will lead?
All right. So based on the input that we got from numerous businesses that helped us compile these questions, a lot of them say that the city doesn't well enough incentivize the creation of small businesses. I mean, there are innumerable roadblocks, including going through the permitting office, having to get alcohol licenses. Some people feel that it is absolutely necessary to hire expediters. So right now, I'd like you to give us an elevator pitch for real enactable legislation that could streamline the process of turning an idea into actually serving a customer. We'll start on this side. Mr. Sharp.
So I believe we're really going to have to lean into technology there. Our permitting process, even right now, I mean, it's broken. And I think for years we've watched legislation being passed that unfortunately really doesn't affect or benefit our small business owners like it's supposed to. We watch requirements be too high. We've watched a lot of our small businesses just not be able to meet the requirements, and we haven't gone out of our way to ensure that they can meet these requirements. But circling back to the question, just if we're going to make the permitting process easier, technology is our friend. Right now, we're not using technology like we need to. Different departments aren't talking to each other. The left hand is not talking to the right hand. You're having to take one permit to 5 departments before you're issued anything at all. So again, technology is our friend, and that will probably be the best way that we're gonna be able to speed up and make our permitting process a lot more efficient.
Thank you. Councilman, some real legislation.
We'll lead now. Thank you for the question. What is actually going on right now in real time is that 8 years ago we did ATAG 2, which is the Alcohol Technical Advisory Group 2. I spearheaded that. We made 60 recommendations to the mayor's office. Not all of those got enacted. So this year, in cooperation with Karen Bremer and the Restaurant Association and other community partners in the neighborhood, we've reinitiated ATAG 3. We're about to begin our discussions this 2 weeks from tonight. And so we are going to be looking exactly at how to streamline the process for small businesses, bars and restaurants all across the city. So it's happening now, it's happening in real time, and we hope to have it done by the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Brooks, sell us an ordinance proposal.
First, we have to talk about the fact that there is a huge digital divide in Atlanta. 1 in 4 households don't have access to the internet. And when elected, I will create legislation that will create a 5G broadband service that will be free to low cost across the entire city of Atlanta. And I think it is time that we see access to the internet as a human necessity and right. Secondly, I would say that now is the time for us to really work with our businesses and incentivize them. And the way that we do that best is by voting out people who only care about big business. You see, you'll never get what we need for small business so long as those who are in the pocket of big corporations are the ones always making the decisions. So why not get people who actually do the work? People who actually know what it feels like to bear the burden of not being able to get through a permitting process because it takes too long and it's burdensome, and bureaucracy mars down everything. Secondly, what we need to do is give more access to people to do these jobs while working remotely. Why do people need to show up down at City Hall and in these buildings downtown in order to do much of this work when we've learned that remote work works? So we need to bring that to City Hall so we can ease the strain. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
So as Mr. Sharp said, there are numerous places you have to go to get a license, to get a permit, to get anything done. Thanks. We need to streamline that, and we need to make the local area, the people who lead in the local area, more responsive. So bottom line, we take our neighborhood planning units, our NPUs, and we make those boards elected. We put them on the general election ballot, and we hold them accountable. Then we empower them. Right now, NPUs can be ignored by the city. So you have a small business going to the NPU, asking for approval. They either get it or they don't, and then the city can ignore it. I went to an NPUE meeting a couple years ago where they rejected the permit for an LGBT Pride festival, and then the city just ignored it because of course we were going to have that. You make those positions elected, then you empower them. The city can have an affirmative override, but you empower the locality. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gray.
I've led in the area of supplier diversity for over 20 years with corporations across this city. I built Grady's Small Business and Diversity Program, grew it from 3% to 33% with minority, women, local, and small businesses, and changed that trajectory here in the city. So I know firsthand what our businesses are challenged with, especially here in the pandemic where businesses are waiting over a year to get a license or to open that first day. If we can make that more accessible, we can get people back to work quicker. We could turn around some of the biggest elements in this. So one thing we need to do is make sure we do have the right technology. We need to make sure we fund the departments appropriately, and we need to put the right metrics and accountability in place to take any delay or any unethical behavior out of the process so we can get the license in the hands of those who create businesses in this community. Second to that, we need to make sure that in the midst of another pandemic or economic downturn, that we fund and stand up an office that's readily available to make sure our small business community has no further delays in what they experience due to the pandemic or the economic downturn. And I will do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so we're going to continue with that theme very quickly, and what I was going to do was maybe vary it up with the next person so we don't get into the left-right pattern and let y'all start predicting what's going to happen. But, Mr. Gray, since you did actually put out an amount of time, the question that we had next for you all, and this is from small business owners here in the 04th Ward, they're concerned about this, and at Butter.ATL, we care very much about all of these small businesses as well, and I actually have a little bit of experience, so I think I know an answer to this, but I'd love to hear your answers. So, Mr. Gray, since you said a number, I'd like to see if that's your final answer. How long does it take, in your estimation and what you believe to be the amount of time, for a small business here in the 04th Ward to successfully navigate the city permitting process? And then there's a bonus question that I'd like each of you to answer. And that is, let me make sure I say this correctly because this is one of my favorites. Yes, do you support an overhaul and an update of Chapter 10? Do you support an overhaul or update of Chapter 10? Mr. Gray, I'd like to start with you. Do you stand by your 1 year, and then we're going to come back down the right?
Sounds great. On the first question, I talked to a small business owner while I was making political calls and small business calls just this week. And they talked about how it's been over a year to get their business license, and that's definitely in the age of this pandemic. It should not take a year at any point. And that's been because they couldn't reach anyone at City Hall. So that is the worst that I've heard. In any other case, it usually happens within the duration of the time frame, but not consistently. And that's what we have to bring to the table. As it relates to Chapter 10, I would love to speak to it, but if I could you just give a quick indication of what specifically? I do want to answer it.
Unfortunately, I'm unable to do that, but I want to give everyone an opportunity to answer that, but thank you.
All right, thank you.
I just learned what Chapter 10 was yesterday, so I'm really glad I'm not running for office.
It's great. It's great. Chapter 10, best part of the book, I promise you. Let's keep going, Mr. Goldberg. How long do you estimate that it would take, and what do you feel about an update or an overhaul of Chapter 10?
So Oh, it's working this time. Good. So first off, I think that I was going to say a year and a half, but Mr. Gray saying a year sounds just fine to me in terms of an estimate. It sounds terrible in terms of a length of time, and it shouldn't take months and months to get a renewal either. I've seen numerous instances. I've heard from many people that they can't get renewals done. In terms of, I'm going to go ahead and answer this based on what I remember, but I think in terms of playing the game of which number is assigned where, I'm not an expert either, but we need to take a look at not only our city codes, but working with our state and federal level, because A, we don't have connections at those other levels, and B, we've had the same systems in place on the local level for years and years and years. I mentioned NPUs earlier, and so I'm going to get around the answer and still answer it by saying we need to review everything, and we need to work with the state and federal governments to make sure that their laws are serving us as well. Thank you.
Got it. So no chapter 10 over there. All right. That's 202, but y'all are doing great. I really appreciate it. All right. Mr. Brooks.
What I find interesting is it's funny because you had spoken before about how people sometimes use acronyms or different things that kind of are inside ball type of things, and it's pretty much what you did with this question. So that was
Really
very well played.
Thank y'all. It's my birthday.
Very well played. Very well played. Happy birthday. I got you on a drink afterwards. All right. But in all seriousness, I think, bring me back to the first part of the question, because you got me so.
Not at all problem. How long, in your estimate, do you think that it takes? Got it.
Thank you. Look, I have a good friend that owns some restaurants over in Glenwood Park, and has currently been waiting 8 to 12 months to get all the permitting taken care of for that location. I'm talking about they're paying the lease on this space already. It takes way too long, and this is what is a product of a few things. Number one, we have a horrible human resources department at City Hall. I mean, people don't even get their employee onboarding training until 9 months into the job already. So I think we, one, have to end nepotism at City Hall. Two, have to hire more people to work these jobs and fill these roles. Three, need to use remote opportunities. And also, when I will go home, I will search up on Chapter 10. I'm sure Mr. Bond probably knows what it is, but I'll send my answer to you. Thank you.
Okay, so that's one thing. I'm actually going to skip Mr. Bond and let him go last. So, Mr. Sharp, let's please get your answer on A and B question. Thank you. In your estimation and what you would assume or estimate, how long does it take a small business in the Old Fourth Ward to navigate successfully the city permitting process?
So this isn't what I think or an estimate. This is what I actually hear from businesses. I've been out here on Edgewood talking to businesses. I've been around downtown Atlanta and throughout the city talking to businesses. And it really depends on the business. You have a lot of businesses, I would just throw it out there, younger people, millennials that know how to whip through that process. Go online, do the permitting, and they can get theirs done in sometimes 4 to 6 months. But you do have some people, maybe older restaurant owners that know nothing about the computer technology. So for many of them, it is taking up to 12 months. So it really depends on who you're talking to. And when it comes to your second part of the question, I'm gonna let Mr. Bond answer that one.
It really shouldn't take more than 60 days for someone to get a license. And the issue actually has been made worse by people working remotely because people have not been available remotely to process the permits. And so as we move out of COVID, there really has to be more, I guess, of a hybrid situation, because the city gets an advantage for people working remotely. It saves us money for people to work from home, but there is an accountability issue. My office is very big on constituent services, and half of the constituent services that we've done for the last 18, 19 months has been helping people get their business license, to intervening with the bureaucracy. I got my haircut today. I had to help my barber. It took her 9 months to get her license, with me helping her, calling the director every day, because it wasn't the director, it was getting the inspector to come out. They've been doing online inspections, stuff like that. So this is an area of focus that the city's looking at all areas.
Did we get that Chapter 10?
Yes, every municipal code, Chapter 10, that's why I did ATAG, is because the codes need to be reviewed on a periodic basis.
Including Chapter 10?
Including chapter 10.
I know that's right. All right, so
Right, including chapter 10.
Chapter 10, liquor licenses. Yes. So, thank you, everyone. Very well appreciated. I'm going to pass it back to Sean here.
All right. So this one, I mean, everybody knows that all of these small businesses, even large businesses, have been grappling with this pandemic. Some of them won't survive the pandemic. Some of them have already faltered and fallen. I'm curious, and this is tricky because the state law has created so much legislative and bureaucratic red tape that in some regards your hands are tied. I'm curious, would you encourage or find a way to enforce vaccine mandates or mask mandates for small business, staff, owners, and customers? And how do you navigate that? Why don't we start with Mr. Brooks?
Here's what has to be kept in mind when we talk about vaccines and mask mandates. And let me preface with the fact that, number one, I'm vaccinated, and that I wear masks. I'm a school teacher. I'm in the building on the front lines of this pandemic in ways that no one else in this room can speak to. I literally risk my life to serve the community every single day. But I had a group of friends who wanted to be here, to be a part of this process. And they got turned away because they were not vaccinated. See, we have to keep in mind that there is a lot of medical, racial trauma that has occurred, especially in the black community, that has caused a lot of distrust between our community and the medical world. We're least likely to receive pain alleviating medication. We have the worst causes of death during giving birth for our women. The black community has a lot of trauma that we've experienced. And until we rebuild that trust, it's gonna be very hard to get people to do what they should be doing. And I think it starts with better communication, better education, and helping our people. And no, I would not be for enforcing any type of vaccination mandates on the people.
Thank you. Councilman, let's go this way.
Well, thank you for the question. I don't believe the city has the authority to enforce a vaccine mandate, but I do believe that it would be necessary in some quarters. Part of our Public Works Department has been devastated by COVID-19. Many of you may have had your garbage pickups delayed or changed, and that's because people have gotten sick, people have gotten died, and there are people who are on the front lines every day. Also
Thank you.
risking their lives, like myself and others who are out here in the public. And so it becomes a real consideration. I would definitely consider it because people don't argue about getting vaccinated for the mumps. People don't argue about getting vaccinated about measles or polio. And we don't have those scourges in our community because we do get vaccinated. We need to depoliticize and listen to the medical experts and take our advice from there.
Thank you. And I guess I want to emphasize maybe the unspoken part of this question, which is that city officials are going to have to work with the GOP-controlled state legislature one way or another. And I guess I'd like to hear more about what you guys can do to cross the aisle. I don't know if any Republicans are standing on the stage right now, but I doubt it. So talk about.
I don't know.
We're continuing with you, Mr. Sharp. Talk about how you can make small businesses safer against COVID with the roadblocks that are installed right now by the State House.
So first, I think it's always very important, especially running citywide, that we're having relationships with everyone. So even relationships across the aisle, dealing with Republicans that maybe we don't always agree with, that's something that's going to be really important. But to the question, I'll answer it. I spent a lot of time in New York. I've spent a lot of time traveling also around the world. And even before coronavirus, people were wearing masks in a lot of public places. That's what they did. So I am actually not against. Actually, I'm in favor of some type of advisory or mask mandates for public spaces or essential businesses like a grocery store or maybe a doctor's office. But I think private spaces like the one that we're in today, I really think it should be completely 100% up to the business. But I do think in more essential businesses or in public spaces that maybe we could encourage some type of mask mandate, and especially if we know it's going to cut down in health expenses over a period of time in our city.
Thank you. Mr. Gray.
You know, I've always led from the factor, we may not always agree, but as long as we're looking the same direction, we can find a compromise. I'll stand up personally, either mask up, vax up, or test up. Wherever we are on the issue, do the right thing. People are dying, and they've died in many of our families and many of our communities. If it didn't happen to us directly, it happened to us indirectly. So that's the first, just as a human responsibility level. I work in healthcare. I head small business and diversity, equity, and fight healthcare disparities for Kaiser Permanente. I did that for 7 years for Grady Health System. I walk these streets, and you see these ambulances fly by here. I've done the work. When it comes to the state's perspective on it, we have to work together and educate all communities. As it relates to City Hall, I would make the best decisions to keep our employees safe and our visitors when City Hall reopen to keep them safe. Test up, vax up, mask up.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
So first off, it's not the GOP overall, it's a specific individual who sits in the governor's mansion. And while we hope COVID lifts, we need to think long term. And there's two sides to this question in terms of time. For the last 3 years, Stacey Abrams is going to be the governor of this state. So we're going to have a different situation. So we're talking about the first year, and we're talking about Brian. So what do we need to do? Mr. Brooks is right. Folks in minority communities are more likely to be afraid of the vaccine. They're less likely to have access. And so that's incumbent on the city to work with our nonprofit partners and our city agencies to go into those communities with people who they will trust, people who have survived it, all those stories of people from the ICUs, the intensive care units, and make sure that folks are getting the vaccine, because being scared of the vaccine is a fair perspective, but not acceptable in a once-in-a-century pandemic to not get the injection. And so I would work with our small business organizations to begin to implement those types of requirements as soon as we could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's going to be our last question for now for these candidates, and I'd like to ask first Councilman Bond. What can you say, and how would you describe your record in terms of working with small businesses and helping small businesses here in the 04th Ward and throughout Atlanta? And if you could, just give me some specific examples, and let's talk about your record. And after Mr. Bond is done, I'd like each of the candidates to then tell me how you would improve or where you see room for improvement in Mr. Bond's record. So, Mr. Bond, we'll start with you, please.
Well, thank you very much. One of the things that I've always done is support our restaurants and bars in 04th Ward and around the city in the way that the legislation that I've presented, making sure that I listen and meet with restaurateurs and bar owners across the city to make sure that our process is fair, balanced, and accessible for them. That's why I started ATAG 2, so that we can have a review in Chapter 10 of the issues in the ordinance to make it easier for you all to do business and to be prosperous. We've had issues that have arisen this year. We've started ATAG 3. We've been getting appointments to that to review the code made up of persons who are affected by the laws we pass, who are affected by the policies that happen at City Hall. And so we have now just, because the appointments have to go through the council and they come from different places, we're about to begin meeting on that, and we're sitting hand in hand with those who are affected to improve the law and to make sure that we're providing you with the opportunity to maximize your business.
Can you clarify what you meant again, ATAG 2 and 3?
Oh, I'm sorry. ATAG is the Alcohol Technical and Advisory Group. There was an original one started by Caesar Mitchell, I believe back in 2002. We did ATAG 2 at the beginning of 2011 or 12, I believe, and now we did the legislation for ATAG 3 in April. We've been waiting for the appointments. We've gotten them all in, so we have a quorum so we can legally meet, and we'll be doing that within the next 2 weeks.
Excellent. Mr. Sharp, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Mr. Brooks and head the rest of the way down.
So I'll say this, when I'm outside on Edgewood, or if I'm on Cascade Avenue, or if I'm on Peachtree Street in Buckhead, or if I'm right here in downtown, honestly, 90% of business owners and workers that I've met when I'm walking in there have never met a council person. They've never even met a candidate before, to be honest. So I think it's really important that we're just out here doing the work, that we're actually talking to businesses like we say that we're doing, and we're sitting down with them to really know and figure out what their needs are. So again, I can only talk about my experience. I can't talk about anybody's record or what they've done. I can only tell you what I have experienced out here. And again, I haven't talked to every business in Atlanta, but I've talked to a lot of them. And when I do talk to them, they will say they've never met their council member, don't even know who they are, let alone meeting another candidate. So what I say to that is, we got to get out here and really start doing the work.
90%.
90%. And then y'all can go walk up and down this street right now and ask the business owners and the workers, have you ever met a council person? And they would tell you no.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Brooks.
I think we're at a place where we have a real opportunity to have leadership that not only tries to lead based on what they feel should be done, but are actually a part of the community. See, I started coming to our bar over the pandemic in the midst of the social justice movement, trying to figure out what we would do, because our bar gave the social justice movement a space to organize and to figure out how we should move as a collective. So we don't have to start reaching out to the community if we never leave the community, if we are truly a part of the community. And I think it's time for us to have leadership that understands more intimately what the needs are, because you're there. Lastly, I will say, I think now is the time when we have to be real about public safety in this city. 60% of the gun violence that happens in the city happens with illegal firearms. And it's time to create ordinances that require a person to secure their firearms in their vehicles, so that we don't have to create laws that make it our bar's responsibility to man and have security for parking lots, when that should be APD's job, which is what the incumbent plans to do.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
So the councilman mentioned boards and appointments and what have you, and for too long, the council has been a rubber stamp on the mayor's appointees. And this is anything, it's not just small business involvement, it's MARTA, it's everything. While I'm not saying we should be disrespectful like the US Congress, council confirmation hearings should be as intense and involve those kinds of questions that you would get from a congressional hearing. We need to see, who are these people who've been appointed? Are they qualified? Do they have diverse perspectives? Not just diverse ethnicity, but who are they representing? Because that could be a type of diversity we need to consider as well. And to follow up on something Mr. Sharp said, there are so many people in this city, not only have they never met a member of council, they are concerned, they're intimidated, they feel uncomfortable reaching out. There may be no member of council who looks like them. Through my involvement with different communities, for example, the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I've worked with those entities that are out there doing the hard work, bringing folks together, and we need to go to them. We need to be not just an ally, but a friend, someone they can call and say, Brandon, what are you doing up there? Or this is going on in our community, are you aware of it? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to give you all facts. Mid-2000s, worked for Wachovia Bank, headed supplier diversity in the Southeast region. Made sure every branch that we built utilized minority contractors. We provided access to capital. We created jobs. We did over 30% a year with diverse businesses in this community, kept people employed, challenged gentrification from happening. After that, I went north, froze my butt off, went to CVS Health, built their supplier diversity program nationally, came back to Atlanta, made sure when we built retail pharmacies in this city that we did it in underserved and served communities. We used women, minority, local-owned businesses to the tune. I built the program from the ground up. They made it to the $1 billion roundtable annual spend last year. After that, I came home and thawed out. I joined Grady, 3% diversity spend. Moved that program to 33%. We grew small businesses, and we changed who paid with their time versus their resources by going through the emergency room and lower your tax dollars, because now they were getting income and they could pay with their insurance. So I've worked and I've done this work throughout my career, and I will continue to stand for it.
Thank you. All right, we're doing all right on time, so why don't we very quickly, everybody give a closing statement. How about 30 seconds? We'll start back with you, Mr. Gray.
All right. In closing, I'll add one other thing. I have served with the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board of the Atlanta Business League, the oldest African American business association. They appointed me to the Board of Ethics to fight corruption in our procurement process, to make sure things are transparent and ethical, and I have done this work each and every day. I lead supplier diversity today to make sure that our facility on Cascade utilizes businesses that are local in that community. We've done over $2 billion to spend with minority businesses that have cut crime by putting our youth to work and training them in different skills. I'll continue to do the work. ToddAGray.com, Experience Service Solutions.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
So I ask you, when you cast your ballot, don't vote for the person who read the table of contents and knows the titles of the chapters. Vote for the person who knows the substance and has the solutions. My name is Brandon Goldberg. You can reach out to me, Brandon at BrandonCoreyGoldberg.com. My website is BrandonCoreyGoldberg.com. I'm happy to talk to you about any of these issues in far greater detail tonight or in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
I say to all in attendance that everything we march for, everything we fought for, everything we believe that Atlanta should be or could be is absolutely on the ballot right now. We know Atlanta is not headed in the right direction because Atlanta has been headed in one direction for almost a quarter century with the same leadership. Right now, it's a time for change. And what I offer to you is the ability for us to have someone of the movement, of the people, of the community, giving your voice more amplification at City Hall. So I ask you to vote for Alfred Shivy Brooks so that we can have real leadership, hearted leadership, leadership that cares in office finally. You can meet me at brooks4atl.com, and I look forward to building with you a better Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for being here tonight. It's my pleasure to be here with you. You know, I'm not new to this. I'm true to it. What my opponents propose, I'm already performing for you. I get up and do this job every single day, and it's a privilege to do this job. And I thank you for allowing me to do it. I work hand in hand with those in your industry. I have the support of your associations financially and endorsement-wise. I want to work for you. I love this job. I love what I do for Atlanta. This is my home, and I work hard at it every day. And together, we will make it better together. I've worked on behalf of your industry throughout my career. I'm not a stranger to you. My God, I love you. I love this street. I was born down the street. I lived down the street when I could, when I moved out. I lived there and raised my family. My God, I need your help. I need your support and your vote. Michael Julian Bond, Post 1 at Large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Sharp.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. My name is Jareem, and my last name is Sharp. And I'll just end by saying, I think that for far too long, we've just had people on council that have just been in office there, again, for too long. We can all walk outside today, and there are potholes, our sidewalks are busted, there are homeless people out there, there are literally people doing drug deals around the corner, the police are sitting at the end of the block in their car. So when we talk about presenting new solutions, when we talk about doing the work, we really need to make sure, again, that our policies are effective, that they're actually benefiting the people that we say that they need to benefit. And as we see, again, if you walk outside right now, that's not happening. So again, my last name is Sharp. You can go to www.sharpe.vote to learn all about my policies and who I am. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, how about a round of applause for our candidates? Thank you so much for taking the time. Now I guess it's time to grab a drink before the next slate of candidates.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you everyone for being here again. I am still Sean Keenan, and this is still Mike Jordan.
Same old guy.
Your humble moderators.
No. Thank y'all. No, it's not about us.
All right. It's still Mike's birthday. Do we want to do the song again? I'm just kidding.
No.
We'll do that after. Everybody will buy him a shot, and he will sleep here tonight. Okay, so I think at this time it's appropriate to summon all the Post 3 at-large candidates. Would everybody come and join us up on the stage?
Come on up, folks. Thank you all.
I believe the mics have been sanitized, so...
Yep. Candidates to the stage, please. I know we got a little stool right there. I did say to the stage, but yeah, if y'all can make your way up, I think that's okay. Yes. Be careful.
Thank you. If you need any help.
We believe it is stable.
We do not have money for lawyers.
That's correct. Supporting small business means not suing if anything happens. Won't she do it? Got him. Thank you, Sean. All right.
All right, let me just quickly demand absolute silence.
Thank you, folks.
All right, so I'd like to remind all of our candidates that we do have a timekeeper. It's this handsome gentleman there in the pale pink fading button down.
Johnny Martinez from Joystick Game Bar, Georgia Beer Garden. You should know him very well. He's a great man.
So we are going to try to restrict the answers to 60 seconds because I know there are a lot of regulars waiting to get in right now, or I believe they are, and you know, everybody wants to drink. It's Friday.
60-second answers, please. Chapter 10.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10.
All right, so we'll run with the same itinerary this time around. Why don't we start on my side with Miss Waits? Would you do us the honor of introducing yourself, and then we'll work our way away from the moderator's stand.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you to our host for hosting tonight, and the drinks are lovely. Thank you. So I am Keisha. I am a native of Atlanta. I spent about 19 years serving at the local, state, in the General Assembly, and also at the federal levels of government with the Department of Homeland Security. I served briefly with the Small Business Administration, so I'm looking forward to this dialogue this evening. Essentially, I'm here this evening, one, to hear more about the concerns of small business owners, and secondly, just to engage and to exchange ideas. And so I look forward to the conversation tonight. I appreciate my colleagues being here, and frankly, they all have amazing ideas, and I enjoy listening to them as well. So I look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waits. Please continue to your left.
Good evening. My name is Jody Meriday. It's a pleasure to be here. Native Atlantan, believer in the fact that small businesses are the silent heroes of America. I've done many a sachet up and down this street. I'm happy to be here. I frequented. I enjoy myself tremendously. I think our nightlife has begun to be incredibly robust. Our restaurant life and its opportunities emergent. I'm here happy to engage and meet small business owners here about your concerns, be a part of your solutions, and as a small business owner myself, share in the vision for how we can advance the best opportunities for small businesses. I think we have to revitalize. I think we have to give the grants. I think we have to be incredibly thoughtful about the partnerships that are provided to ensure that we make it to the other side. Thank you for hosting this. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Ms. Meriday. Ms. Williams.
Hi, I'm Sherry Williams, candidate for Atlanta City Council Post 3 at large. I too am an Atlanta native and proud to be here tonight. I am a small business owner. I have two small businesses, and my father, who worked on the assembly line at General Motors for over 30 years, also part-time on the side, and then after he retired full-time, had a taxi stand called Rapid Taxi, and it was located over on Joseph E. Boone, which used to be Simpson Road, and he employed over 10 people. So being a small business owner, I have an uncle that worked in the paint shop at the Dorville plant also. He started a janitorial business, and that business still goes on even though he's no longer with us. So I have worked with chambers of commerce across the nation. As a former banker, my bank catered to small and medium-sized businesses, so I know what's possible. So thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Ms. Labat.
Tricked me. They turned my mic off. I am Jackie Labatt, and I am thankful to Our Bar, MailChimp, and Butter.ATL, love Butter.ATL, and my fellow colleagues here. As Mrs. Waite said, we are great with each other, so this is actually exciting. I am a native Atlantan, born and raised here, Southwest Atlanta. Went to Atlanta Public Schools and also Fulton County Schools, graduated in Roswell. Graduated from an HBCU, came back and worked for 20 years in corporate America as an executive assistant, project manager, right hand to a lot of CEOs throughout the city, but my favorite job was right up the street on Auburn Avenue with Mrs. King. I spent about 8 years as her chief of staff. So I am a lifelong Atlantan, longtime public servant, and first-time politician. I hate that word. For me, this is about public service, and my platform actually is crime and public safety, infrastructure, affordable housing, and our youth, all of which I think are relevant to small businesses. So I'd love to talk this discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, we're going to get our questions started tonight. And again, these are from actual small business owners here in the Old Fourth Ward that we've kind of selected. Often the city seems solely focused on supporting and listening to large corporate businesses while failing to understand the importance of our legacy, minority-owned and independent businesses to creating a sense of community and identity in our city. So that's the primer. In addition, these same businesses are constantly caught up in the red tape of city permitting processes just to keep their businesses running or potentially expand. The question is, why do these systems continue to fail small and local businesses? And do you have significant steps, again, significant steps you will take to correct this? I would love to hear those significant steps and why you think these systems continue to fail small and local businesses. And we'll start with you, Ms. Labatt, and just come back down the right way. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Great question. So I think that in Atlanta, we need to have a more efficient government overall, and it starts at the very, very top. You set a bar, and that goes to your commissioners all the way down to your personnel. We need to improve technology, and just like the previous panel said, you have systems in place where the big corporations have people on staff who can handle those permitting processes, and they don't necessarily have to incur any additional expense. But with small businesses, they almost have to hire and contract a third party just to get the basics done. And I think that in Atlanta, in order for us to be a best-in-class and first-class city, we have to have best-in-class and first-class policies, procedures, and technology, not next-in-class.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, please.
As a small business owner and former banker, I've experienced firsthand the red tape. I have yet to get my business license from City Hall, and I started applying before COVID. And the rules on the website were different than when I arrived in person. So I thought I had all of the information. I did. I had all the information on the website. So what I think needs to happen is we need to strengthen and expand the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, at Georgia State University, and allow it to serve a larger number of small business owners. We also need to work better with the chambers of commerce, and especially the Black Chamber of Commerce. But the other thing we need to do is to expand the depth of what the Minority Supplier Development Commission is doing, and we need to also streamline certifications for small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Meredith.
Absolutely. I think we have to have people who have real experiences executing the body of work on the other side of what the requisites and requirements are. When you talk about streamlining it, I mean, it seems to me as if it should be easy enough to have an application process that allows you to input what is required technologically, react, and be responded to on that basis within no less than 30 to 45 days. But I think a lot of the people don't have the common sensibility. You know, they say common sense ain't common. I think we've got to have a common sense approach with real people with real experiences that know what it feels like me. Applying for one of the loans that Invest Atlanta put forward saying all should apply, and then rescinding within 1 day saying you had to be on the commercial corridor to receive the $25,000 loan. It's someone like me who knows what it feels like, who's gone through the process and pragmatically would have the skill and expertise to simplify it for real people operating real businesses day to day.
Thank you, Ms. Maraday. And Ms. Waits.
Sure. I agree with everything that they said, my colleagues. But essentially, I think they're 100% spot on. I think that there are a lot of challenges in compliance and guidelines issues that bog down the process. I can recall trying to get some renovation work done at my home, and the contractor initially said to me, you know, I'm not going to be able to do this job because it's going to take 6 months to navigate the process of getting a permit. So the reality is, if we want people and businesses and corporations to come to Atlanta and do business in Atlanta, we've got to do better. And as my colleagues have said, this isn't rocket science. There are people who know how to do this type of work, and I think it's a matter of utilizing best practices, utilizing technology, and being committed to the process. I can recall in 1996, a lot of our street vendors were ran off because they didn't necessarily have the look that the city of Atlanta wanted. So I think we've got to be committed to really supporting small businesses as well as underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this next question kind of keeps in the same vein as the prior one. And during your responses, multiple of you mentioned the need to hire expediters, the need to streamline the permitting process. If you were here earlier, you've got a heads up on this question, but a lot of the business owners that we talked to for this forum said that the process of going from turning an idea into a reality to actually serving your first customer is incredibly cumbersome, incredibly arduous. So I want now for each of you to pitch real enactable legislation. Give us an ordinance proposal right here on the spot that could help streamline this incredibly cumbersome permitting process. We'll start with you, Ms. Waits.
Sure, thank you. I think the city has made some steps in the right directions, and I think there's some areas where we have failed. I love the process where we were able to suspend rent for airport concessionaires. I think that was spot on. But I do believe for underserved communities, we could possibly waive business licenses for individuals who demonstrate some type of need. I think that we can go a step further in terms of increasing the minority business program, because the reality is many small business owners simply don't have the capacity. They don't have the staff to navigate a lot of the stringent guidelines and requirements. And so I fully support not only streamlining the process, but putting some money behind it in the process of waiving fees, in addition to utilizing opportunities to Invest Atlanta to support small business owners who have great ideas, who have invested in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maraday.
My ordinance would be called ATL Thrive. Anyone who has an EIN number that is a small business owner operator would receive a $500 grant to support and assist with concluding the process of getting that application done and making certain that they have the support necessary for the tax documents. That seems to be the bear that we all have to wrestle in the end of concluding our work. I would also do it for those who are self-employed, those who are gig workers. I would give that same subsidy to them. I would ensure that we gave another $1 million to our small business incubators that are there to support assurances that get them through some of the nuts and bolts of what's required to operate a business. And I think lastly, infrastructure, marketing, and also looking at technology, providing an asset that could assist them with how they market and are able to gain access to new markets through technology.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Hi, I'm going to call my legislation, We Mean Business with Small Businesses.
Yes.
because we have to mean business. So again, the SBDC at Georgia State can walk people through the process. Most people have never heard of it, don't know it exists. So I would have within my policy that each small business owner that has an EIN number and if they don't have an EIN number, they would help them get their EIN number so that they will literally walk them through a 30-day process. And they wouldn't have to pay anything. They would also be able to get between 6 months and 1 year of free financial and legal technical assistance for their business, because our small businesses really need that to set themselves up for success. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Labatt.
Yes, another great question. And what I think we need to be focused on in terms of small businesses is a COVID-19 recovery plan. And it needs to be short-term and as well as long-term. This time last year, I think many of us thought we would be in a post-pandemic mode. We are not. And so when you look at resources that are out there, some of the resources have come. Some restaurant owners and small businesses are waiting on additional funds. There are finite limits as though we know an end date to this thing, and we do not. So I think that what I'd like to see is a City of Atlanta COVID-19 recovery plan for small businesses that not only includes the money, the resources, and education about that, but also talking through the feasibility of your business. Like, is your business really designed, and does it have a model to thrive, not just survive, but thrive beyond COVID? And if not, how can we help you retool that? And what can we do to help you expand it or go in a different direction so that you are successful and can make a living?
Thank you. Now, before we move on to our next bigger question, I want to get kind of like rapid fire answers from you. I think most, if not all of you, were here during the last forum that we just had a few minutes ago, and you heard probably some of the estimates of how long it takes to go from the idea to the reality. I want to ask you very quickly, how long could it take? What's the fastest in an ideal world that you can start a small business in Atlanta? We'll start with you, Ms. Labatt.
Gosh, I would love to see somebody be able to start up a small business in 90 days, 60 days. I mean, really, when it comes from conception to all the permitting processes, I would love to see the city get smarter with respect to technology. When you saw the gaps that were in the federal funding for PPP, the Small Business Administration pivoted and they made it easier. And then you have these big companies out there who got millions of dollars, then they went public, they got billions of dollars, and then they got forgiven. But it's still the small businesses who are struggling. So I would love to see Atlanta get smarter and more compassionate in their processes, because this is about people's livelihood and about moving the city forward. So whatever we can do to speed up that process, I think 60 to 90 days is reasonable.
Thanks. Ms. Williams.
I think each small business is at a different point when they are ready to take it from concept to an actual business. So I think it varies. However, we can speed up the process if we allow a process to be in place where all of them have mentors. I mean, that's the main thing. These small businesses need someone to be able to take them by the hand and walk them through the process, because it is a maze. And so once we set that up, whether it's with the SBDC or whether it's with the Atlanta Business League, and always include the bank, because you got to get the money right, and the legal piece. So as long as we do that, it can be anywhere from 30 days to 13 months, depending on where they are when they first get started. They just need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Meriday.
Yes, this is a part of my platform. I call it Ready, Set, Go, 30 days. I think that the process should actually happen in increments, and that we should expedite the process, because the truth is people are operating those businesses without the licenses, because this is a hand-to-mouth, reel-to-reel reality for most business owners. So they are already gone and out of the gate. It's just we're not collecting necessarily the taxes on that business at the conclusion of the year. So I think we've got to look at 30 days, ready, set, go, a timeline every 30 days of additional pieces so that it's not so overwhelming when you're getting out of the gate and you've got enough time to get the assistance and to be engaged with people that can help you edify and strengthen your capacity and have a good analysis. And then I think the culmination and completion of that process should end within a 6-month time frame. And once you've concluded that process, you should be out the door and not having so many requisites to constantly circle back and touch back in with the city, because it also encumbers the city to have all of that multiple accountability after you are already operational.
Thank you. Ms. Waits.
Sure. I support my colleagues' theory of 30 days. I remember in 1994, I had the privilege of being an intern for the city of Atlanta, where you could actually go into the city and get a business license the same day. I remember that. And frankly, given technology and where we are, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that today, which is ridiculous. The other piece I think is important is this. You should not have to know a member of council or have a relationship with the mayor's office or someone in leadership to get anything done. And I think that the city of Atlanta has existed on that for many decades, and I think that that's sad. I think that deters individuals from doing business with the city, and I think that's one of the reasons that many people look at other counties, like Cobb and DeKalb, to do business and play in Atlanta and so forth. And so I think we could do a better job of recruiting business owners through making sure that the process has integrity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We're gonna get into this nightlife thing. We're here at our bar ATL. Over-tip your bartenders, please. Over-tip your bartenders. Nightlife businesses and arts organizations generate a great amount of revenue. This is true. Attract tourism and convention business. This is true. And are critical to the identity of the city. Very true. Yet there are only 2 departments, APD and Fire, who are available to support these businesses during their peak hours. What steps will you take to provide more resources and support to the nightlife economy and ensure these businesses are seen and treated as an asset to the city rather than a liability? No one's saying that that's the way it is, but it feels that way. What steps will you take? I'd love to start and kind of shake it up. We do this sometimes. So actually, Ms. Maraday, you looked right over me, eye contact. I love it. Would you like to go for this question?
Absolutely. I think we could have a nightlife ambassadors program that offers that support. I think when we're looking at our NPUs, I think we could fund individuals that worked with NPUs so that there's representation from the neighborhood that is supporting the businesses and new business development in the rougher hours. And we're looking at, if we have exchanges that are clearly an escalation that typically the police would be called for. I think we have to have robust police alternative diversion unit funding for escalations connected to mental health or drug or substance abuse, where in actuality what we need is intervention, counseling, and de-escalation. Perhaps a couple of moments for someone to have a seat somewhere so we can regroup and not have it escalate into something that could be harmful for the individual unnecessarily. So I think those top of mind are some of the first things that I think about that could be supported, because the entire brand of Atlanta is intrinsically connected to our nightlife.
Thank you, Ms. Maraday. Would anyone like to take the question next? Switch it up a little bit.
Hi.
Yes, Ms. Waits, I saw you, and then please, the next ladies, please.
Sure. I remember in 2001, we didn't have bar closings. I don't know if you remember that. Prior to the Shirley Franklin administration, bars didn't close at a time in Atlanta. I recall that. And I think there was a shooting at Cobalt that drove a lot of those conversations. So the reality is, and so due to public safety issues, we started to close our bars early. The reality is when people come here, they come to Atlanta to party. They don't go to Cobb, they don't go to Rockdale, they come to the city of Atlanta. And so I think that we're having some challenges right here on Edgewood and Auburn in terms of parking. And so I think that we can be a better steward of creating and facilitating partnerships where we don't see the bar community and the nightlife community as an adversary. I can remember in 2001, there was a desire to increase permitting fees at strip clubs to $1,000.
Who would dare? Who would dare? I'm sorry.
So I think we have to be careful, and I call that a syntax. And so the reality is that our nightlife is important, and in terms of our economy and what drives our city. And so I think that we have to make sure that we're good stewards and that we're being supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, please.
Hi, I love this question. Even though I am an Atlanta native, I lived in Chicago for 16 years, thanks to Coca-Cola, who transferred me from Atlanta to Chicago. And that's a city that doesn't sleep. So, and if we want to say that Georgia is the best place to do business in the U.S., we need to be able to brag and say Atlanta is where you want to come and have a good time safely and enjoy with good entertainment as what is expected in the jewel of the South, otherwise known as Atlanta and the birthplace of Dr. King. So what I would do is I would have best practices that other cities are using, as well as we need ambassadors, and we also need the PAD program expanded, police alternatives and diversions, so that is 24 hours. And we also need to have ambassadors of goodwill who are helping like they do down on Peachtree Street, where they direct tourists. We need to see them on every corner so that people can get direction and they can get help if they need mental health or whatever. We need to just be more open to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Labatt.
Yes. So I believe that Atlanta Police, Fire, all of our public safety partners, their job is to create safe spaces in a responsible way. But one of the things we're going to have to do first is repair the relationship with them so that we can have comfortable relationships and create safe spaces where Atlantans and others can come, party, hang out responsibly. With the relaxation on marijuana laws, you know, we have a lot more interactions than we should that don't necessarily require the police. So I'm an advocate for that, but I also believe we need the PAD 311. I just don't believe it needs to be 311. We had a family member experience a trauma or psychological episode, and he was in LA, and they called the SMART team. It was a dedicated number. It was 9 o'clock at night. It wasn't 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and it wasn't, you know, and I feel like I shouldn't have to dial 311, the same number, when the trash people knocked over our mailbox. And I shouldn't have to only do it between certain hours. So I think we do need additional resources in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this is a good segue into another question specifically about public safety. And this is something that we asked last night, and I think last night sort of the word of the day became recompense. It's no secret that businesses, especially small businesses the world over, have been financially throttled by the pandemic. And the pandemic has exacerbated an already difficult crime problem. So I want you to talk to me about how we can reform our policing system while also supporting the police, while also maintaining consciousness of the wariness that many communities have of police right now. Additionally, I'm curious if you think there is any appetite for small businesses who are disproportionately afflicted by the crime wave to get recompense from the city. We'll start with Ms. Waits.
Sure. I think depending upon the zip code, the response time is different. And that's a challenge. Many convenience stores and gas station owners simply don't call because they don't feel that they are a priority. So I think that that's some areas that we can work on there. Secondly, I think that we must understand that law enforcement cannot do it alone. The reality is they do need our support. And there is a culture in the black community where you don't snitch, you don't tell, and that's killing us, unfortunately. And so I think that we have got to have more collaborative relationships. I think that PAD is certainly a step in the right direction, although underfunded. But essentially, if we're going to be really serious about that, I think we have an attrition issue where we're losing the best and brightest talents to other cities and communities. And I don't know a whole lot of officers who can even afford to live in the city of Atlanta. So that's a challenge. And I think you police a community very differently when you live there, when you know the people there. And so, you know, we have law enforcement in the building tonight. And so I want to make a shameless plug that we do a better job of supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Meriday.
Yes. I'd like to say the recompense, absolutely. I'd like to look at language quickly. I'm huge on criminal justice reform. I serve of counsel for measures of justice, and I'm keenly aware of the systemic and institutional factors that render the misappropriation of justice quite often, from where it happens on the streets to how people are treated when they leave the streets to what they encounter in our justice system. And I'd like to distinguish what Atlanta needs if we're going to be thoughtful, and differentiate what it means to have police officers from responders. And I think that what we're looking at is the need for an escalation in the number of responders that we have availed in the city that are able to deal with some of those issues that are not as exacerbated or a part of what I call the wave. The wave is where 2 years ago, someone who was going to be shot in an exchange of homicide was shot one time, and now it's 12. Like, we have a serious problem with homicide, with rape, with aggravated assault, and with auto theft. And I think our police officers need the time, skill, and tools to fight bad actors. And I think we've got to double the resources that are available for the people who are not bad actors, but nonetheless needing that de-escalation or alternative resolution.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Hi, I've served 7 years on the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, the ACRB, and I chaired it for 2 years. I've ridden in a police car with a bulletproof vest on through neighborhoods. Yes, small businesses, especially in the outlying areas, are disproportionately affected by what's going on after hours. I think our police are doing much more than they should be doing, and that's creating stress, and it's all on them as well as on the patrons that they serve. Obama's 21st century police strategies is the answer, I believe, to 90% of what's going on. I grew up in an environment with Officer Friendly. Many of our youth have never heard of Officer Friendly. The first time they saw an officer was when he came to their house to arrest a loved one for some minor offense in most cases. So you start from the beginning setting a negative tone with the young people, with the police, and that must stop. Community policing in all forms and fashion are going to help us move to the next level and also keep our nightlife and our small businesses safe.
Thank you. Ms. Labat.
Yes, so I do believe that you will see where response times vary across the city by zip code, but naturally when you have a city like Atlanta with record growth, and when you look at our daytime population versus our nighttime population, and the police staffing numbers are constantly dwindling as well as fire, we've got to focus on staffing, but we've also got to focus on training, and we've got to be honest about the historical racial biases that were a part of policing from the very beginning and the reasons why we have these issues. So we got to have some honest dialogue, and not just community policing, but community input and community auditing of the training, just to ensure that everyone's on the same page and communities are getting out of law enforcement and public safety what they need. And with respect to response times, we got to look at 911. Nobody should call 911 after being shot and being put on hold. That's crazy.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Labat. Thank you all. And we're going to go into this question because it actually makes sense. We mentioned it in the form of police and community policing. So thinking about this in the sense of the employees of small business. Small and local businesses often pay higher wages and provide better work environments than larger businesses. As housing costs rise in town Atlanta neighborhoods, and oh boy, they are, such as the Old Fourth Ward, employees of our local businesses are having a more difficult time living in the neighborhoods they work, much like we said the police. Are there alternatives to the current affordable housing model in Atlanta? Are there alternatives to the current affordable housing model in Atlanta that can ensure service workers can afford to live in the specific communities they serve, such as the Old Fourth Ward? I'd love to have a volunteer for this question.
I'll start.
Ms. Labat, thank you.
So that's one of the reasons that I stepped up to run for office, because I have been sort of behind the scenes on the sidelines, and I have a lot of questions. And this was a question. I had more questions than answers. What is affordable housing? And in talking to my peers, talking to other elected officials, The word affordable is relative when it comes to housing. What's affordable to one may not be to the other, and what works on one side of town may not work on this side of town. But what we need to do is start to look at real solutions and actually put them into play and look at different tiers of affordability. So for a person earning this much, this may be affordable. For a person earning this much, this may be affordable. So when you talk about the $100 million that the bonds program, and then you say, well, where are the houses? And you see $400,000 townhomes. That's not affordable to the workers that we're talking about. So I just think we have to get real and speak in not hashtags and not slogans. You can't govern by that. What impacts your quality of life? What types of housing do you need on your side of town? Let's get with builders and let's make it happen.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Hi, thank you for that question. I believe that we need to really get a grip on affordable housing. Otherwise, we're going to be like New York, where people live in Connecticut and in New Jersey. No one lives in New York who works in New York. And commuting times equal stress. And if you're stressed when you get home, you're going to kick the dog and a whole lot of other things. So now you got to call the police. Oh my God. So we need to end this cycle and really and truly get a grip on affordable housing. I think that one of the things that we need to do is we need to look at best practices from around the world, not just in the Georgia or the city of Atlanta. I think one of the programs that's underway now is called Affordable Buckhead, where they have a grant from the Atlanta Regional Commission, and they are looking at employer-paid or employee assisted housing models. And that may be one of the things that we do. I mean, since the inception of most cities, there was always time when large companies had workforce housing right next to the facility. So we need to supplement maybe from a different angle, but best practices is what we need to really look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Meriday.
Yes, I think there has to be a cap. I mean, it's a numbers game. It's simple. If you're earning $12 to $15 an hour, you're working 40 hours a week. At the end of that month, when we do the math, which is kind of the everyday person, we know what that math equals. We have got to do rent controls and put them in place for a certain percentage of locations throughout this entire city, wherein if you are making a minimum to a median livable wage that you can afford to live in the city, period, point blank. Even if that means that we've got to offer grants and subsidies to employers, and then based upon years of employment with specific businesses, people are thereafter afforded an opportunity to get housing subsidized by their employers. We've got to be innovative in our approaches to saying it's fundamental. If you are earning livable, average, everyday wages as a person, you should be able to have a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment. And the truth is, you can't right now.
Thank you, Ms. Waits.
Sure. So COVID has certainly changed the way we live, work, and play in every way. I am a landlord, and I've spent 20 years in the business, so I'm not necessarily a big fan of rent controls. There are some tenants who don't do the right thing. And there are a number of landlords that have been disproportionately bankrupt due to eviction moratoriums. And so I think we should be also sensitive to that dynamic. But the reality is, in Atlanta, we closed public housing many, many years ago with the promise that we were going to create these live, work, and play environments, that it would be mixed use, and that the families who lived there before would be able to come back. And I think we all know that has failed. The community benefits agreements are not effective. Many of them have been violated, and that's still happening right now, in fact, in this particular community. And finally, the city of Atlanta is a very large landholder. I think that there's a tremendous opportunity for the city to invest. And I think we do that by looking at abandoned and foreclosed properties. I think we partner with HUD. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I want to give you guys a rapid fire one. I'm talking like 5 seconds or less for these answers. I just want to kind of read the room before I ask our final question. Tell me, how much do you think you need to make an hour to afford a 2-bedroom in Atlanta? or even Metro Atlanta? Because right now, the state's minimum wage is $7.25, even lower, depending on how you're calculating. How much do you need to make an hour to live in Atlanta? Go ahead.
Right, a one bedroom is on average $1,100 to $1,400. So you've got to be making anywhere from $18.95 to $22 an hour to be able to afford that.
I was going to say 20.
Who said that? Was that Ms. Labatt? Okay. Ms. Williams?
I would say somewhere around $25 an hour to be able to afford.
Ms.
that.
Waits?
I think it depends on the zip code you want to live in.
Let's say here.
In this particular community?
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Uh,
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
That's a pretty good guess. That's what it costs to live in some of the more affluent communities. In Buckhead, it can cost about $34 an hour to afford the standard two-bedroom. Like the bare minimum to afford to live in Atlanta is a little higher than $19 an hour. So I say that to, I guess, set up this next question, which I want to be our final one. We've talked today a lot about some of the barriers, and I can't remember if I asked this of the last candidates. I definitely asked it last night. Some of the barriers that the State House poses for city officials. We're talking about wage. We're talking about COVID restrictions. We're talking about rent control. So I want you to tell me, what are the most severe roadblocks that are inhibiting small businesses in Atlanta from flourishing right now? So the most severe state roadblocks, in case I didn't make that clear enough. And we will start with Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Lack of resources, and also, embarrassingly, lack of the assistance needed to get the resources that have already been allocated. And so if you have a program that's designed to help a small business, and the small business can't get the money, where are the systems that will allow people to actually get the money? There's no one there to protect and to save the small business. So once the money's allocated, people need to be able to get it, period.
Thank you. Ms. Labatt.
I think that it's lack of resources, lack of education about the resources that are there, but specifically when you talk about Atlanta and the barriers with our partners, it's lack of relationships. And that's one of the things that was appealing to me about this seat, which is nonpartisan, and I'm a registered Democrat. However, I have a lot of Republican, independent friends, black, white, gay, straight, brown. Like, I have a respect for everyone's opinion, and I understand that part of what Atlanta's suffering right now, whether it's Buckhead Bankhead, Buckhead Atlanta, the Governor's Mansion Atlanta, it's relationships and being able to compromise and move the city forward. So I think that's where we got to start.
You're saying like the strained relationships between the Gold Dome and City Hall.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. All you.
Yeah, I think we have a state or representatives at the state that are adversaries to the city of Atlanta is just the truth. And the bottom line is that has also rendered them the adversaries of the people and the adversaries to small businesses. When the money has come down the pipeline to be distributed and disseminated and make it to our hands, our state has encumbered it, cut it off, denied it, and then not appropriated information for dissemination so we would know what could be next or receive what we could have had due to us. So I think the biggest encumbrance is what we're gonna have to do next, which is be sure that we get a Democrat down there in the big old mansion. And then number two, we're gonna have to begin to revisit and look at the dissemination of information and support so that even when the applications come down the pipeline, we're not cut out because we can't get through the 30-page necessary application to get the $5 subsidy. Metaphorically.
Thank you. Ms. Waits, you've spent some time at the State House. Round us out here.
Well, in 2015, we passed the transportation bill, the Transportation Funding Act, HB 170. And in the bill, there was a push to actually put minority contracting language in there for women and underserved communities. And for whatever reason, it didn't pass. But I will tell you this. In the city of Atlanta, you know, most of the folks are Democrats. We think alike, and oftentimes we tend to vote alike. So I think that there's an opportunity here at the city that we can streamline the RFP process, which I think is flawed. And my colleagues have already talked about the lack of capacity. If you're a mom and pop business, most people just don't have P&L statements or even understand the language necessary to navigate this process. If you want to put up a fence across the street and secure a contract to do that, most people can't wait 60 to 90 days to be paid. So I think we've got to streamline the process to make it more advantageous for smaller businesses and for people who don't necessarily have all of the expensive proposals and jargon or have relationships with the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've come to a conclusion of the question portion. I wanted to say very quickly, I'm very happy to be here, and I think Atlanta is a better city to have 4 black women as engaged as you are. So I really appreciate you all making the time to come here at Butter.ATL to speak directly to your constituents through video and also to the people who also braved all of the conditions to be here tonight. Traffic being one, pandemic being another. I don't know which is worse, but I want everybody to be safe out there. I would like to, again, remind everyone, our bar was incredibly gracious to host this event. So if you do nothing else, support this bar. They do amazing things in this community. Same as Johnny Martinez and my friend Brandon over at Joystick in Georgia Beer Garden. And again, over tip your bartender. I think Ms. Williams would agree with me. Under kick your dog tonight. Kick your dog less, please. But also, I'm gonna make a very selfish birthday recommendation because I'm so proud to spend my birthday here with everyone here who is engaged with the democratic process. I'm going to take a wide selfie, and I would love for anybody to just do whatever's natural. I would say do a A-Town down, but some of us may look at that and be like, this old Atlanta, and I don't want to get into the politics. So, it's very easy. All I want y'all to do is look up this way because it is my birthday and I get one wish, and I just would love to let everyone know I spent my birthday with amazing people who are looking to make this city better. So thank you all.
Mike for mayor.
All right, do something on 1, 2, 3.